Hello. Today we'll talk about an architect who was never my favorite. In fact, I learned about him rather late. Quinlan Terry from Great Britain. Let's read a little bit about him. So John Quinlan Terry was born on the 24th of July, 1937, and today is July 24th, but 2023, is a British architect. So he is today, let me see if I can count, 63 plus 23. He's 86 years old today. So let's wish him happy birthday. He was educated at the Bryanston School and the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London. He was a pupil of architect Raymond Erith, with whom he formed the partnership Erith and Terry. Quinlan Terry is a well-known representative of new classical architecture and the favorite architect of King Charles III. He has a keen interest in how traditional architecture contributes to the debate on sustainability and has lectured frequently on the subject. Quinlan Terry continues to practice full-time with partners Roger Parrell and Eric Cartwright under the name of Quinlan Terry Architects LLP. Now, I don't know about these words, new classical. I'm very suspicious and skeptical about such wording. But we'll go through only one work where his view is expressed, and that is his own house. Because I discovered an interesting material, very extensive in terms of number of images, that stirred me up and made me think that perhaps it would be interesting to talk about domesticity and architecture, about modernity and what opposes it. Here on Wikipedia, we found these words, new classical, but we can debate what they mean, and we could even question the validity of this pair of words. This is the man at 86. I mean, I don't know if in the picture he's 86, but he's 86 today. And here is another picture of him at the drafting board, no computer at all. He draws, with care, in minute detail, as architects used to. At the time when, after Alberti, the architect moved away from the building site on which Brunelleschi still worked, and moved away with a white collar shirt in front of a drafting board, and there, started imagining things that people far away would build, hopefully. I found this material on the web called Morality, Architecture and Belief, Quinlan and Christine Terry, that's his wife, at home and work in Suffolk, in Great Britain. Morality, Architecture and Belief. An ambitious title, maybe too ambitious. And this was the website where I found the material that you are going to see, and then I'll comment spontaneously, let's hope without making too many outrageous statements or uninspired statements. I mean, the very name of the website is stirring me up, and maybe some other people too. BibleofBritishTaste.com. Morality and Architecture, Belonging and Belief, Quinlan and Christine Terry at home and work in Suffolk. But the Bible of British Taste, let's see what this is about. So this is a picture of the architect, almost taller than the door he had to go through. And I can say he looks good for his age if he is here. I think the article was written in 2022, so he was 85 years old. And you are going to see a lot of pictures of his own home, which he you know, furnished and maybe remodeled to an extent. What you see on his right is a drawing he did for a Baha'i temple, so not Christian, so has nothing to do with the Bible. Yeah, as we read, he's you know, the favorite architect of King Charles III. We remember that also Leon Krier was, and perhaps still is, one of the favorite architects of King Charles III. This is the house. He moved in. He didn't design this house. He just you know, took care of it, so to speak. And well, you know, it's a historical house. It's manicured, at least the vegetation, but inside there is a lot of you know, there are many collected items. Obviously, Quinlan Terry, you know, is an avid collector, a man of taste. And let's look at some images of what he has inside this his home and studio. And I remember once I invited Kenneth Frampton to come to see, when I was living in the States, to see a project I've thought of starting to do, you know, towards Arcadia. And he protested, and I understand why. I am not sure I understood then, but I understand now, because Frampton was against the idealization in such terms, you know, Arcadia. But talking about Quinlan Terry, I would say that you know, some sweet home sweet home is present in his work. And you know, this idealization of a pastoral bucolic landscape in which you can find a great gingerbread house with people on the benches, just splendor in the grass, and with a great you know, desk lamp and a little, you know, I mean, everything is for my taste too sweet. And here we see, you know, the homeland, the fatherland, the motherland, and I don't know. I mean, you know, we don't see planes on the sky. We don't see, well, in this image, we don't see any highway or car. You know, there is no pollution. There is no global warming. It's just an Edenic environment in which even the horse is immensely happy, and everybody is happy, animals and humans alike. And then King Charles III is happy, and yes, the interior is cozy. The mirror is you know, a beautiful oval with a nice frame, which shows, if you look into it, a great face. And everything is just as it should be, right? But life is not like this, you know. Life is not like this at all. I think Rem Koolhaas was right that even in the best villa ever designed, dramas take place. You know, even a billionaire would feel tempted to smash that bucolic mirror, and or to, you know, splash some colors on the idyllic scene, you know, painted on the wall. So yes, it's very nice for King Charles to imagine that the whole world could be like this, while hundreds of millions of people have nothing to eat, or very little. You know, I mean, I wonder what an architect or anyone feels or could feel in such a house, knowing that hundreds of millions, yes, that's what I read, live under the poverty line. And yes, nice objects, nice antiquities, nice collectibles, but how much reality is here actually? You know, it's an escape from reality. That's what it is. I mean, look at that big fish on the door. You know, it's not even a great taste, if you ask me. It's a side of contemporaneity which surprises me, because you wouldn't expect, in the 21st century, to see such interiors, and even under the banner of the Bible of British taste. And then you have the chandeliers, which are rather comical almost. They are a little bit burlesque, and we are going to see some of them. But if you are a tourist, a tired tourist, and you are invited in such a house, probably you would accept the invitation. You might even feel cozy to an extent. But I ask, does such a house and such an interior represent our time? I do believe what Charles Baudelaire said, that art has two halves. One half speaks about the fashionable, the circumstantial, the temporary, and the other half about the permanent and the eternal. Well, here we have actually none of them. But Baudelaire was talking about, good art. So I guess here we don't have good art, because both that modernity, turbulent modernity, which asserts itself through what is fashionable and circumstantial and temporary, meaning, continuously rejuvenating itself, and the immutable, the eternal, the permanent. I wouldn't say that here the permanent and the immutable is present either. It's a point in history. It's a historicist. Yes, there are some nice objects here, but I think there is a difference between a collector and a creator. Although there were some great creators who were also collectors. Because a great creator or a creator, a genuine creator, usually loves beauty and has great curiosity. So people collected, Albrecht Dürer collected a lot, and Rembrandt collected, and Balzac collected with borrowed money, and then he had to run away because his creditors would be after him and he couldn't pay. So there isn't a contradiction really between creativity and collecting. But the psychoanalysts, the Freudian psychoanalysts, would describe the collectors as being, if I understood, correctly what I read, anal personalities. I don't know. But one thing is for sure, someone who creates, especially from the field of art, being that, is a lover of beauty, of color, of line, of engravings, of paintings, of sculptures, of whatever, if he or she has some money, probably would do some collecting. But there were other creators who didn't have the means to collect, and even if they had, they wouldn't collect. So not everybody collects. But in this case, this architect enjoyed, the vicinity of collected objects of all kinds: a table, a chair, a lamp, everything he had a chance to discover and to acquire. There is nostalgia here, and I think nostalgia is not only bad, although in a lecture at Columbia University, a Mexican architect did say that he fought hard against nostalgia. And I understand in one way that nostalgia could be problematic, because it could enslave you in some kind of a passivity or excessive looking backwards. there are nice objects here, and probably some of them quite expensive, you know, porcelains, and I guess he liked Chinese artifacts. He likes all kinds of things, but I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to see more of his works, and even in a disorderly way present, like let's say the atelier of Le Corbusier in Paris, which was the atelier of an artist. Although, you know, he was known primarily as an architect, he also painted a lot, Le Corbusier, as you know. Here, everything is so, you know, is positioned so carefully, everything is studied, everything is actually immobilized into an object of desire, which actually doesn't nourish you to smash it with a volcanic imagination and impulses of who you are in the present now. In other words, that break, that innovation, the hammer of innovation, the hammer of modernity knocks down the Chinese porcelains and says, wait, I have to assert myself. I cannot just be ad infinitum the prisoner of their beauty. Yes, they are beautiful, but they entrap me. I need to breathe. I need to assert myself. Yes, the lamp. Okay, it's a lamp. You know, it's a lamp. It's probably an expensive lamp, or maybe it's not an expensive lamp. It doesn't matter. But it's a passeistic lamp. And so is that, you know, plate there, you know, probably to an extent rather precious. And if you break it, you know, you might cry for a few days. But then Antoni Gaudí steps in and he takes that plate and he breaks it and he brings the shards to Park Güell in Barcelona. Because a creator cannot be happy just with collecting. A creator wants to move the world forward, sometimes for the benefit of the world, other times the opposite direction. And look at this, another interesting, collected item, you know, this clock, and then we have the canes, you know, stored, you know, near the clock, and it's the house of a collector. That's what it is. I even collected the rifle, and that rifle you are going to see placed in the corner of a room. And you wonder, you know, I mean, I know that hunting is a nice pastime for the aristocrats, but one could see, especially, you know, in the light of the Bible, what one could see, you know, some malevolent effects on, at least on the animals that are hunted of that rifle. So, you know, this kind of this is righteous architecture. It is a righteous architecture. You know, it's a good architecture. It's too good actually to be true, and it's too righteous. You know, I mean, yes, the picture on the left at the bottom is a little bit, as you can see, rotated to the right with 1 or 2 degrees. So I guess not everything is perfect, but otherwise, you know, the intention here was towards perfection. Domesticity, static domesticity, nothing is disordered. You don't see a sock on the floor. You don't see a dirty shoe. You don't see dirty dishes. Even that book, you know, is open probably at the right page on that beautiful little support, and the chair is just waiting for you to sit there and read another little fragment and feel that indeed the war in Ukraine did not exist, but it does exist. At this very moment, probably people die in Ukraine because of the atrocities that soldiers are capable to inflict on people. Otherwise, of course, the great history of art and architecture is present on the walls. You know, the Pantheon is there, and you know, there are Piranesi, and then little statuettes with the great heroes of culture, you know, and then, why is it that we do not learn to have peace on this earth? Why is it that, you know, we go to museums, we go to great schools, we school ourselves, we visit other countries, we know, we read Tolstoy, we know that we shouldn't wage wars, and yet we do wage wars. How to explain it? You know, how to explain this? That we learn nothing. Yes, there are beautiful things here. This man was not responsible for starting a war, of course. But my question is, how could you be so, you know, calm and so, you know, satisfied with the inside of your, you know, beautiful home, when even in Great Britain there are, you know, poor people who, you know, have a hard life, and they are, you know, probably inhabiting small quarters in some horrid blocks of flats. And you, as an aristocrat, you know, you would have nothing of that. You are protected by the walls of your villa, and you know, to contemplate great books and great art, and have conversations in Latin together with Leon Krier. You know, to me, there is a high level of unreality here. Nobody says that there aren't some interesting works here. I mean, not done by the owner of the house, but or the inhabitant of the house, but by other people. He's only collecting them. The lion, but a placid lion, you know, sitting, a tamed lion. What could be more sad than a tamed lion? And this is, I don't know, some kind of, anyway, I see his name there. Quinlan Terry. I played a little bit viciously with his name. I transformed Quinlan into Quinlan Terry, because I was trying to refer to the paradox that at the peak of democracy, and Great Britain is a democracy as well, we have a nostalgia for the king and the queen, and for the prince and the princess. Because how do you explain, even in the United States, you know, which is supposed to be a democratic society, or the democratic society par excellence, many people are, you know, very, very interested, or were very, very interested in Prince Charles and Princess Diana. They were on the covers of many magazines, you know, in the supermarket or wherever. Everybody was, you know, eager to find out the news about the prince and the princess. But why, if we are living in a democratic society? So it seems that, you know, even if we are so-called, you know, members of a democracy, the echoes, even the shadows or the lights and the shadows of a certain form of aristocracy or monarchy itself, they are still with us. We didn't eliminate them. Because again, otherwise, why would so many people be interested in Prince Charles and Princess Diana? Even now they talk about that. And then Piranesi found himself, so to speak, you know, in many kitchens of this world. You know, Piranesi, who is the dark prince, talking about princes of architectural engraving, on the walls, placidly displayed on the walls of a kitchen in the 20th century or 19th century or 18th century or the 20th or 21st century. But there is a sign of life here. Is that baby carriage there, you know, which is kind of hidden underneath the stair, but there is a sign of life. you know, there all of a sudden we see something that refers to a newborn, and it's not a collectible item. It's not, I imagine it's not, and that's why it's rather hidden there. Well, you can see it, but it's there, you know, in the darkness underneath the stairway, there is the baby carriage. Welcome to a new life. Because I understood this architect, Quinlan Terry, with his wife, they moved in this house in the 1980s. So maybe they had, you know, a newborn in this house. And then on the walls, of course, being that here we are talking about an architect, nicely framed drawings of buildings. But what buildings? Well, you know, certain kind of architecture associated with what the word tradition means, or what the word tradition most people think it means. Because actually the word tradition, I did some investigation, and maybe I interpret it, you know, a little bit, you know, in a deviant mode. But I discovered that in English and in French and also in Romanian, the word tradition shares the same root with the word treason. You know, yes, treason. So you have tradition and you have treason. You have tradition in French, and you have trahir, which means to, you know, to it leads to treason, trahir. And in Romanian is tradiție and trădare, to betray, betrayal. And I like to speculate on the fact that perhaps tradition, in order to be or become alive, it needs some form of betrayal, of treason, trahir in French. And that's what the true creator does. You know, he betrays something of the past, and in the process initiated by this betrayal, tradition moves onward. It's not static. In my opinion, true tradition, if it wants to remain alive or to become alive, it needs to embrace, even not just accept or tolerate, some form of betrayal. And that is why we talk about tradition and innovation, or continuity and break. You need a break. Well, you need continuity too, perhaps, because I don't think we can separate ourselves completely from the spiral of time. And I think what truly belongs to a fruitful past doesn't actually pass. So again, what is tradition? I think tradition, if it is alive, and it has to be alive and not just an object, you know, displayed in a case made of glass or plastic or whatever in a museum, and we look at it and we say this is tradition. No, I think tradition, to deserve the attention that sometimes it commands, it has to be alive. And in order to be alive, it also has to contain some form of betrayal. So maybe it's not just a coincidence that the etymological root of the word tradition and the word treason is the same. Okay, maybe I went a little bit too far, but you know, I was encouraged by the factuality of etymology. Treason and tradition have the same etymological root, and not just in English. So maybe this is worthy of some attention. Many people invoke tradition, you know, the traditionalists. I abhor the traditionalists. I think I respect tradition, but a tradition that is alive, its spirit is alive, not dead. And the traditionalism and the traditionalists actually kill tradition. This is my belief. Now, this kitchen, I don't know. I mean, or dining room. I know it's the kitchen. Yes, it's spacious. It's for those who can afford it now. But again, it's so separated from life in general, and so privileged that I have some question marks about it. And look at these sweet architectures. They are folkish and they are naive. And I don't think Buckminster Fuller referred to naivete in this sense when he said dare to be naive. I think he referred to a different kind of naivete, a naivete which was the naivete of sincerity, not the naivete of not knowing or of ignoring. A few signs of life here. The book is not aligned. And if I see well, there seems to be some kind of a drawing of a modern building, not a traditional or traditionalist building. But there are a few signs, not everything is aligned, which is a good thing. The column, the Quinlan Terry said that the five so-called classical orders are almost like they are immutable, they are perfect, they are the works of divinity, of God, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, what are we to surround ourselves with such columns? What about the columns, the beautiful columns that play hide and seek with each other of Carlos Scarpa, who didn't try to imitate or to reuse the so-called classical orders? Nice, plates and jars, and too nice for my taste. They are too sweet. I like this image, but I like it in a way for the wrong reasons. It's a delusional work, actually. It's everything is too aligned, too correct, too sweet, too nice. Now, yes, if here you saw some people in jeans and t-shirts and maybe something, a piece of paper on the floor and a balloon flying through the room, and signs of life. I mean, right now, yes, there are qualities here, but they are so static and sweet and nostalgic that. And look at all these plates. Yes, maybe I'm in a bad mood, but I feel like smashing them. Really, they irritate me. Although they are sweet, they are innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. But then we see the source of electricity there. So wait. We are not in a different century before the invention of electricity. No, we are after that great discovery, without which we cannot live any longer. Maybe there is even some, garbage, so to speak, in that thing at the bottom. Now, garbage itself is a sign of life, unfortunately. What do we see here? It's a fireplace which became something else. I mean, we see some tools there, for the kitchen in a glass, and we see the little pictures left and right symmetrically. And I wish some kind of a tornado would come in and take them with it. Sometimes it's hard to breathe when we see so much sweetness. I once witnessed, I was in the Avery Hall at Columbia University in New York when Mark Wigley talked, rather harshly against Martin Heidegger and his gingerbread house, in which he lived his, his last years of his life, actually a good number of years, together with his wife. And Mark Wigley was commenting polemically and malevolently on the, the patriarchal spirit that seemed to be, implemented by the great philosopher in that gingerbread house he was living in, exploiting his wife, who was, cooking at the stove while the great philosopher was contemplating infinity through the open door. The funny thing is that Mark Wigley came to the United States from New Zealand, maybe one of the closest countries on earth to what we call Arcadia. Not to speak about the fact that the Princeton University and campus is itself rather Arcadian in spirit, maybe too much so. Now look at this chandelier. My God, my God. You almost wish it would fall on the table and provoke some disaster there on the beautiful shining table, on which the left arm of the great patriarch of Moscow, Kirill, could show that there is no wristwatch on his left arm, when in fact, in the reflection on the shining surface of the table, the discerning observer would notice one, and a very expensive one, a gold watch, apparently costing $30,000. Yes, such a scandal did happen some years ago, when a picture with the great patriarch of Moscow, a good friend of the great statesman Vladimir Putin, and they were playing chess sometimes, I understood. Anyway, he was sitting at his desk, and he had no watch at his wrist, but in the reflection on the shining surface of the desk, luxurious desk, watch was to be seen. And on inspection, it turned out that that watch was a very expensive gold watch made in Switzerland, of course, with a price tag of about $30,000, the experts said. The people photoshopped the picture to eliminate the embarrassing luxury item from the wrist of the great patriarch, Kirill. I read this story and I wondered how serious religion is. Who are these servants of God? They are businessmen, They often are only interested in their well-being, and they have nothing to do with the mystery of existence or with the Creator, whom they invoke so very often. That's why those so-called the righteous ones to me are dubious very often. I mean, let us not forget, Hitler himself loved whiteness, purity, purity. Adolf Hitler loved purity. He wanted Berlin to be the city of purity. Every building white, all of them white. But that whiteness was supposed to be built on the background, no, on the front, no, on immense amount, on immense suffering, and immense bloodshedding, and immense, devilish, burning of human beings, concentration camps, sadistic, unbelievable tortures. But the city was supposed to be white and pure and righteous, right? For the Aryan beings, for the glory of humankind, all whites, and all the buildings white, nothing red, nothing to remind one of the atrocities that happened behind that whiteness. We should be all very suspicious of the righteous ones. And look at the suite. Of course, here is something else. I'm not trying to you know, comment on a possible, you know, parallels between the house of Quinlan Terry and, you know, Adolf Hitler. But the sweetness that sometimes some people advocate does hide, maybe often, something else. Because even Friedrich Nietzsche said that behind any beautiful surface lies a terrible depth. And I think Nietzsche was right. Now, what are these things? You know, they were commissioned by Quinlan Terry. What are they? Well, maybe they are not so vicious. You know, they could be ridiculed, but maybe they are not vicious. Maybe quite the opposite. They are architectural expressions of some sort of innocence. Maybe. Maybe what I do now is terrible. You know, I comment on someone's home, you know, but I discovered this material on the web. So it was brought to the public, and I'm trying to understand its inhabitant, you know, who happens to be a, you know, a known architect and the favorite of King Charles III. But the proletarian cannot live like this, not the poor artist, nor the immigrant. You know, this is an interior that I don't think should be advertised as being morally or moralistically relevant to the whole population of the world. No. There is a book, you know, Pompeii, and, you know, the hands of the architect, and then details. It's his refuge, you know, after all. We shouldn't be too negative, because we all need somewhere, somehow, some kind of a refuge. But even Le Corbusier had, no, in Le Cabanon. But what a difference between Le Cabanon and this building. In my opinion, Le Cabanon is more radical and more interesting and more engaging and provocative than Villa Savoie. Unfortunately, I thought so until I found out that Le Corbusier wanted to multiply it to make it mass produced. And then some question marks popped up in my mind. Quinlan Terry's home in Suffolk, in Great Britain. Very comfortable, yes, it does seem very comfortable. Too comfortable, perhaps. Peter Eisenman thought that the architecture that impresses us the most is not the comfortable one, it's rather the discomfortable one. But that could be debatable too, because Peter Eisenman himself lives in Greenwich Village, I mean, in the village in Manhattan. And I wonder if he would have made this statement if he was in Haiti when that deadly earthquake happened. Probably not. Luxe, calme et volupté, as Charles Baudelaire would say. And the chess table, waiting for the players to engage in the conflict. And then Paris. And the mirror with a giant frame. All of this, while at the same time in Ukraine, Then comes Lebbeus Woods with his tornadoes. He smashes this interior. He wants to bring in the tornado of passion and destruction of war to ravage this dream, this pastoral dream, this Arcadian interior. Is he just to do this? Does he have the right to do this? I'm not entirely convinced, but I do understand the reaction. You know, I do understand the protest. The baldachin. Maybe the baldachin should be banished by law from bedrooms. If all the bedrooms of the world would have a height not more than 2 meters and 40 centimeters. But the surprise will come now, because in this building, which is a dream come true, here on the left in the corner we see the rifle. Do you see it? The rifle. This is the instrument of killing. Yes, it's not used now, but this is what symbolizes, and this is what it was made for. It's the instrument of killing. And you wonder, what is it doing here? It became just a decoration, a decorative object, the instrument of murder, that we murder an animal or a human being or a flower, it doesn't matter. It's the instrument of inflicting pain and death. So what happened to the sweetness? The sweetness of the interior? Why is the instrument of death here placidly placed in the corner of one room? Why? Maybe the building is not telling the whole truth with its sweet interior architecture. And then views through the window, look at that. I don't even know if I can call it a tree. You know, it's too manicured. You know, it looks almost as if it was designed or trimmed by AI. The seductive artificial intelligence of these days. Even the church looks contrived and unconvincing. Again, the baldachin, and seeing through it towards the windows. So there is a mirror there now on the desk, I guess, for someone who with some narcissistic tendencies. How could you have books on a desk which is dominated by a rather large mirror, considering the scale of the desk? But maybe it's not a desk to study, but then what do the books do there? The books are maybe, they are challenged by the mirror, and the mirror is challenged by the books. Or maybe the books are just there in order to be brought to bed, under the canopy of the baldachin, and help bring sleep quicker to those wandering through the pages. And even the landscape design, the garden is so, I don't know, tamed, very tamed, not to say frigid, although it is green. But I find it sad, actually. Paintings, we need art in order to, fool ourselves that there is another plane of existence, which the world of contemplation allows us to take a look at for short periods of time, and then come back to either the sweetness of a refuge or the misery of life as lived by hundreds of millions of people. At least the rugs are not perfectly aligned, and this I like. And then, these so-called artworks on the walls, are they classical as well? Not really. Here is the classicist architect, the architect of the new classicism, but the pictures on the walls belong to a different art, different time, different everything. It's still a fabled past. It's about a fabled environment, but then I shouldn't be critical, because maybe they show a certain level of innocence, a childlike mentality that needed this, or maybe these are images on the walls, uh, separating the room of the children. After all, we see the horse, here it is. So yeah, maybe it has to do with the children's room. In that sense, perhaps it's okay. But still very, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is here a certain level of purity, of innocence. So then I would have no right to say what I try to say. I turn now against myself. Am I wiser now or not? It's very possible Quinlan Terry is a very nice man, but I do not know. And does it matter if the man is very nice and his buildings are as you can find out on Wikipedia or on Google Images and so on? One thing is for sure, this kind of imagery you could not find in a building by, let's say, Le Corbusier. Impossible. Impossible. And not just Le Corbusier, I just took a paradigmatic figure. This architect, Quinlan Terry, was and is and will be, after being 86, against modernity. But what is modernity, actually? What if modernity tried to get rid of innocence and naivete, even in that sense invoked by Buckminster Fuller? After all, what is so wrong with this wooden box in which a telephone equipment used to be stored or transported with, as we read here? This box and this cat, the cat having perhaps the eyes of the owner or the inhabitant. Those are not the eyes of a cat. Those are the eyes of a human being. a little bit scary, actually. Anyway, this is a building from, I think, from the town where this, or the proximity of the place where this is not a building that we looked at inside, but it was included in the material that I found. And what attracted my attention was the car, the car, which is belongs to the present, but what we see here does not belong to the present, really. But maybe, contradictions are to be welcomed. So let's welcome that car as well, as long as it doesn't consume too much oil or electricity. And here is the architect. At 85 probably, because this article was published, I don't know if it was made in 2022. It was published in 2022. Still working, and we have to admire him for this, that at 85 he's still working. He's still at the drafting board. Yes, drafting board, not a computer. And the drafting board is rather old. It's an antique, as it might call that. So it's the chair on the right side of the picture. I understood he wears suits made of, tweed and very old suits. And I think this is nice as well, to allow, a high quality tweed, to allow a suit to, to grow old together with the inhabitants, so to speak, to age. Because I think we throw away so many things without allowing them to age. And I think, well, it's true, plastic doesn't age very well, but good old materials, organic materials, they age well. Ceramic, bricks, wool, wood, natural materials age well. Plastic materials less well. Probably an interesting man, Quinlan Terry. Let's wish him happy birthday again. He is 86 today. He studied at this famous school, the Architectural Association in London. And he still looks at that with a certain determination, which we have to admire. And I think we can also admire the fact that he works maybe alone. I know his son is also an architect and they work together still. But I'm not sure about this, but I think, yes, because searching for images of his works, I came across works which were done also by Terry, but with a different first name. And I thought that might be his son. Anyway, another graphic work having to do with architecture, naive as it is, and then ornaments. Yes, ornaments were a part of architecture and are a part of architecture and will be a part of architecture. And those who think that just structure matters are wrong. You can't have structure without ornament. And this is also true in the case of the 5 classical orders that Quinlan Terry is so fond of. And here he is, a little bit taller than the opening of the door, looking inquisitively at us. And you see on the wall the drawing he did for a Baha'i temple. And it's not a bad drawing, actually, I think. A tall man, an architect, 85 years old. And today, 86 years old. Let's wish him again happy birthday. Thank you.